Why is Avgas so expensive? And why does it seem that some FBOs seem to want to stick it to us pilots? Well, let's find out in the hangar. Welcome to In the Hangar. I'm Dan Milliken.
And I'm Christy Wong. Today's episode is brought to you by Gold Seal and iFly GPS.
Well, Christy, I'm excited about this episode because we're going to talk and dive into aviation fuel. Avgas, and also Jet A, and find out, the world of aviation fuel and why things are expensive and everything else. To do that, we've brought in Gary Garrison. Gary, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Gary, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're an expert in aviation fuels.
That's stretching the compliment a little bit. I'm not an expert in anything, but I grew up selling gasoline with my dad. We have been distributors. My granddad started the company in 1949, and in the early 60s, we associated with Texaco, and they were servicing an FBO in Plainview, Texas, Papa Victor Whiskey. And we became the supplier of that FBO. And since then, we have supplied the aviation fuel, jet and 100 or aviation gasoline to the FBO in Plainview. And my dad started flying in the 60s. The owner of that FBO told him that if he was going to buy gasoline from him, he needed to buy an airplane from him. So Dad bought a little Cessna 182, and I learned in the 182, and then we bought a 210 and migrated from there to an Aerostar and a V35 Bonanza. So we've been flying for a long time, since the 60s. Also, I got my pilot's license in 1974.
Oh wow!
And
see, I knew I liked this guy. He flew Cessna 210s.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, you knew I was.
Wonderful airplane.
It is a great airplane.
Well, Avgas seems to be such a pain point for so many pilots. Let's talk about that. Why is Avgas so expensive?
If you don't have it, you'll fall out of the sky.
That is a good point. That's a really good point.
But it comes down really to supply and demand. The demand for Avgas it's a small sliver, less than 1% of the total finished product that the fuel refining system puts out worldwide. So aviation gasoline is just such a small market.
And when you talk about the refining system, not trying to get too much into the chemistry lesson, but for those that maybe don't even understand how we get fuel, take us from crude to Avgas.
Well, crude oil comes out of the ground, of course, and then it gets gathered up and pushed to a refinery, either through pipelines, trucks, or trains, barges, various types of transportation. And a refinery boils that crude, and as it's being heated and boiled, the lighter products rise to the top. And gasoline is one of the lighter products that rises to the top. And it's produced, the gasolines are chemically the same gasolines that we use in motor fuels today. Premium gasoline is the base stock for aviation gasoline.
So why can't I just put that fuel then?
Why not get a premium gas from the
Exactly.
Well, you can. There's ethanol is in most of the fuel, the gasoline that's in the system today, and you don't want ethanol in your airplane. It's corrosive. It'll burn, but it attracts water. It's not compatible with a lot of the components in the fuel system in an airplane. But you can get an STC for 91, 94 octane gasoline.
But with no ethanol.
With no ethanol. There are companies locally, even in Texas and all over the United States, that still manufacture unleaded, non-ethanol gasoline. We sell it. We have it in our distribution network, and there are pilots that come and get it from us. We don't sell it at airports because we'd have to have two types of fuel, and it's really expensive. The equipment to handle the fuel on the airport and into the airplane it's an expensive installation. So the pilots that the lower horsepower, lower octane, or not really lower octane, just the lower performance motors engines of the airplanes can use it. So there's a lot of general aviation airplanes out there that either can or have been STC'd to use.
Interesting.
Well, we use the term octane a lot, and I want, for those that maybe don't understand, why 100 low lead is Avgas and why you can't use 89 or 91 or whatever. Why do we have lead, and why do we have to have such a higher octane in our aviation gas?
Well, when they were developing higher horsepower engines in World War II, they needed the most powerful gasoline they could put through. So a company called the Ethyl Corporation came up with a formulation that has lead in it that it creates the octane. And the octane just increases the BTU, the explosive power of the gasoline. And so engines were designed for that for that fuel. And so the lower octanes don't explode, or in fact, they'll actually detonate before the spark plug sparks. As the piston rises and compresses that air and fuel mixture, you don't want it to explode until that spark plug ignites it. And so if it's the lower octanes will explode sooner than the higher octanes. And once you get the full compression, then it will explode and produce the power that the engine needs.
All right, so if you're
higher horsepower engine.
So if you're having detonation, what will that do in the long term to an engine?
Oh, it'll rapidly destroy the engine.
It'll rapidly destroy it.
That is not good.
Okay, then the other question, then while we're talking about lead,
Yeah.
The EPA long ago, determined that lead causes problems in a lot of people.
Right.
So they got rid of lead in all the car gasolines. I know that the EPA is pushing hard to try to get lead removed from aviation. What's going on there? Do you know?
Well, lead has a bad reputation, obviously, for good reason, and there's still a significant amount of small aircraft in the air. It's a very small portion of the emissions that come from any place in industry or internal combustion engines, but it's still a source, and any source is a target. Mm-hmm. And it's been on the books for several years to get rid of lead out of aviation gasoline, and it's an initiative that's got feet under it and legs, and it's not going to stop. There's a serious effort to get to go to aviation gasoline that does not have lead, that meets all the requirements that the gasoline meets today, because our distribution system needs, it would be really expensive to handle a different kind of fuel chemically than what we're handling today. So we've got to change significantly chemically. So we've got to change, the goal is to produce a gasoline that can be handled in the system today, that the engines can use without the lead, without changing and dramatically changing the distribution or the chemical makeup of the gasoline.
And without having to change and redesign all these engines that are already in these airplanes. I'm just imagining what it would do to my 0360 and the thing, like I'm thinking ahead and going, oh my gosh, am I going to need to get another STC for a new engine that's going to comply with the no lead?
Exactly. We got so many years of engineering and specific standards that have to be met, specifications that the FAA and the engineering community have produced, that the goal is to not disrupt historical construction of our system.
The infrastructure.
Right.
Well, here's a question for you. Why is it that when I go to some FBOs, I can pay $3 a gallon for Avgas, but then I go to other FBOs and it's like $8? Are these FBOs just out to make money? What's the take on that?
Well, the simple question, if you're in business, you're out to make money.
Okay, fair enough.
And so, and there's a lot of risk in being in business, and there are a lot of things that have to be considered. And it's all what the inputs are, what it costs to market that fuel, what your rent is, your insurance, your salaries, and what your investment is. And any businessman needs to come out something at the end of the day after he's paid all of those expenses. So every FBO, every location's different. You've got rents that are in metropolitan areas that are high. I've heard some rents here in the DFW airport, DFW area that floor me. I'm from the Cotton Patch out in West Texas, and so dirt's pretty
Cheap out there.
Pretty cheap out there. Here in the Metroplex, the rents are just huge, and so
Gotcha.
and so every FBO has a different set of economics and financial model they have to look at.
You know what? That actually makes a lot of sense, because when I think about some of those bigger FBOs, I'm thinking about those high metropolitan FBOs.
Going into the feeder airports.
Exactly. Like, I mean, no wonder. It starts with their rent and probably the taxes that they pay to the city, et cetera. They have to distribute that cost somewhere.
That's exactly right.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, now I don't feel as bad. You go in there and you think, greedy, but they're probably just trying to pay their employees and their rent.
They're business people just trying to make a bottom line.
Yeah. Got it.
And provide
Okay.
a service.
Makes sense.
What about, sometimes I see airports, I know which airports, I mean, they're perennially the lowest priced Avgas. How are they able to do that? Significantly, like there's one airport in North Texas that always is the lowest with few exceptions. How are they able to do it so low?
Again, it's cost of doing business. And,
So are they getting it cheaper?
No. Significantly, the product comes out of the pipe at the refinery to the distributor. We are a licensed aviation fuel distributor. There are not a lot of them comparatively to
Right.
in the United States. There aren't a lot of us, and it comes out of the pipe essentially the same price to all of us. And so, if it's for instance, say a city-owned rural airport that doesn't offer any services, maybe has a little building that you can get in and out of the wind and a restroom, and doesn't offer anything else, they're not going to have a lot of overhead.
There you go. That actually, I know exactly what airport you're thinking
Yeah,
of.
and they're probably maybe just want the traffic in. They don't. Are FBOs really even making money on Avgas? I mean, even when you charge a $1 a gallon, some of these places probably aren't getting a lot of traffic anyway.
They have to make money on it because that's really all they have to sell. So they've got to make something to cover their costs. Most cities, most municipalities today understand that an airport is an economic asset to their economy, and so they want to keep it, even if it's a break even. But nobody wants to lose money and feed something that, even though it's an asset, nobody wants to feed it. It needs to at least stand on its own bottom. So. There are, it's just a matter level of services that are offered and what kind of profit margin. If you get out, for instance, we've just started offering through our facilities in Papa Victor Whiskey, we've started offering aviation fuel. We've always provided it to the airport, but we've separated from the FBO, and we don't have anything. We've got a porta potty, and so we're selling at cost. We don't have any other way to draw the pilot in, and for several months we didn't even have a porta potty, and we were getting a little bit of heat from the county and the city for sanitation purposes. The back of the hangars were being used as the porta potty. But our intention is we'll have a restroom and an FBO one day.
Which will be a second FBO at that field.
Exactly. But today, we don't have any services, so we're breaking even. We have amortized some time ago our cost in our fuel facility because we've had it there for years. And so we don't really have any overhead. In the scheme of things, yes, it's a loss today because we're still carrying insurance, and I keep a car out there for the customers, and we try to keep up with who's coming in and needs a car. So it's a loss for us today, but that's not the long-term intention.
It's a long play for you.
We can't get a bigger truck and keep selling at loss.
And full disclosure, that's actually how I found Gary.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I'm flying out there a lot, and I just looked around at my AFB for the lowest fuel cost, and that airport popped up. And then I go and look, and the price was actually like $2 more. I mean, it was significantly higher. And then I realized there's 2 different FBOs.
Oh.
And so, and his was so low, and that's, which then also, I'm glad we connected. The next question I have is that since you've got that Avgas there, and FBOs have their Avgas, what about people coming to fill up that maybe don't have airplanes? Do FBOs want that because it's still just more gallons sold? Or is that something, I've heard stories of FBOs chasing off people that were just coming by to fill up for their, I don't know, high performance car or something.
Well, in the state of Texas, there's a tax that we actually pay when we buy the aviation fuel. But then we are a licensed aviation dealer, and when we sell that fuel through an FBO, we apply for a refund. We get that tax back, as long as we do our best to assure that it's not used on the roads as for a taxable purpose. Over-the-road fuel is taxable in the state of Texas.
Ah.
So if somebody comes in with and it's not, if we're not introducing it into an aircraft or a vehicle that's servicing aircraft, a trailer, a truck that is designated to service an aircraft, we're breaking the law. Mm-hmm. And so if we know that somebody's out there buying that Avgas, then technically we are violating the state comptroller's motor fuel tax law. Now, the ones that are buying it are putting it in ATVs, landscape equipment, race cars. They're not taking it over the road. So if we know that they're not using it for a taxable purpose, technically we're not breaking the law.
Okay.
But if they go out and start using it for a taxable purpose and we're in the loop and we know about it, so our license to sell tax-free fuel is in jeopardy. So that's why some FBOs will chase people off.
Interesting.
With the self-service fueling equipment that's out there, and FBOs are smaller airports that are unsupervised and not really controlled by a fence or a gate. There's not a lot of way to control that unless we know it, and then we become in the loop if it's being used over the road. Somebody puts it in their ATV, their four-wheeler, and goes out and uses it on their farm or the ranch off the road. There's no foul, no harm. Technically, it could be against the law but as long as it's not nobody makes a problem of it, it hasn't been a problem.
Okay, let's say that I wanted to just keep my own supply of Avgas. What are the rules for getting Avgas supplied to me just to fill up the Warrior?
Yeah, like a tank at your hangar, and because the FBO there is too expensive.
Exactly.
Well, you'd need to buy it from a licensed distributor.
Okay.
Like us or another licensed distributor. And you need in the state of Texas, you need a aviation dealer's fuel permit to be exempt from the tax. Otherwise, we would collect the 20 cents tax from you and remit it to the state.
So there, 26 cents a gallon.
I'm out.
So you got 20 cents. Well, you can apply. Anybody can get a aviation fuel dealer's permit.
Got it.
You apply for it. You swear to the state that you'll do your best to see that the fuel is not used for a taxable purpose over the road. And then it becomes a matter of storage, where you're going to keep it. Does the airport allow you to keep fuel? If it's a private airport, they may have rules that say you can't do it. A private airport can make whatever rule they want.
True.
If it's owned by a private entity. If it's owned by a municipality that runs the airport, has their own FBO, they essentially can, as a private enterprise, as municipal ownership, can keep you from doing it. A federally funded airport, if it's a federally funded airport and there are private businesses on the airport, the FAA, I can't tell you that it's a rule, but it's FAA a standard or recommendation that they allow competition. They promote competition, and a owner of an aircraft can use its own employees to self-serve its own fuel and have it. So do you lease some property on the airport? Can you put a tank, above ground, below tank? Will the above ground tank meet the local fire code? You got to meet that. So there's few things you've got to consider, but every airport and every installation would be different. But yes, you can have your own fuel. You could buy your own fuel in a trailer and have it delivered, or either go get it and keep it, say, beside your aircraft, beside your hangar.
All right, let's say I get 1,000, 2,000 gallon tank, whether it's, let's just say below ground, and I want to fill that up. How do I make an order? I guess I call somebody like you, and I say, I've got a 2,000 gallon tank, so can I get a 2,000 gallon order? Can that be delivered in that? I know, because the big 18-wheelers I see out there, those are, what, 7,000, 8,000 gallon kind of things. Will they run out for a 2,000 gallon order? Will it be cost effective?
We will. There are those of us that do keep it in our bulk plants, what we call bulk plants, and we service, being out in a rural area, we service a lot of aviation agriculture spray and application pilots and firms, and so there's a lot of that. There are a lot of farmers and ranchers that have tanks on their ranches that call us and will buy aviation fuel, and we'll deliver it in our bobtail trucks in smaller quantities.
Oh, nice.
Nice, that's good to know. Okay.
Well, for the record, I like supporting my local FBOs. I do not plan on getting my own tank of Avgas, but it was interesting information.
We would recommend that because you've just got a quality control. If you're a commercial operator and you're using quite a bit and you're operating off of an airport, then, or even if you're a private operator and just burning through a lot of fuel, then it might make sense. But most recreational pilots, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to
I don't know, with the amount of flying I do.
Yeah.
That's okay. I don't need to be dealing with all that lead.
One thing we need to touch on is the future of aviation, because we're going to get that lead out.
Oh, that's right.
And we've got there's an initiative called PAFI. I forget it's relatively easy, but it's the Piston Aviation Fuels Initiative that there are companies in the industry that are developing a gasoline that will do away with the lead, and magnesium is the replacement for the lead, and we'll see that fuel coming in. The deadline is in the 2025, 26 year, so we'll see it in the next 4 or 5 years. And,
interesting.
And we'll see it show up.
And we'll see a 100M.
Well, it's just a U100, UL100. Unleaded 100.
But will it still be blue?
Don't know what color, but
Okay, just curious.
Okay, well, we'll need to, and hopefully that won't mean we have to have SDCs or anything.
no. The goal, we did start out the program with that, but the goal is to not disrupt the distribution or
infrastructure,
the engineering of the aircrafts that we have today.
Good. I like
Okay.
my 0360.
So for the future, we'll be on the lookout for UL100 as an Avgas in 4 or 5 years. So again, thanks, Gary. I really appreciate you coming on. You guys, if you have some comments or questions about Avgas or Jet A or any of the aviation fuels, leave us a comment below. If you like the show, please hit the like button, subscribe, all that stuff. So we appreciate you watching, and come back next time and watch us
In the hangar.